Hey guys, welcome to a brand new video and welcome to a very gloomy day here in Japan. And to add to that gloomy weather, we're talking about some gloomy topics or negative topics. Today I want to give you 5 reasons not to move to Japan.
Nani? But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Because I think Japan is one of the most overhyped countries on the internet. If you search for anything Japan, it's always sunshines and rainbows, and I want to burst your bubble in this video. Sadly, I talk about things that are not that good in Japan because I think moving abroad, moving to a new country is a really big decision, and I think before making the decision you need to know both the pros and the cons of the specific country, and I think there's not much talk about the negative sides of Japan. So this video will help you out give context about what you get when you move to Japan. Welcome to a new video in my series Kakun Info, where I help you Kakunin info about life in Japan, moving to Japan. Any questions you have about living in Japan, let me know in the comments below. I'll definitely address it in a video. But today we talk about at the beginning, when you're trying to move to Japan, 5 reasons to not move here. If you want to know reasons to move here, we'll go and watch this video. I'm pretty sure you don't need reasons if you're already searching about moving to Japan, but this video will give you some more reasons that will influence your decision to come to Japan. But as I said, I don't want it to be all sunshine and rainbows, so that's why in this video we talk about 5 reasons not to move to Japan. So the first reason is the language barrier that you face in this country. So before you go in the comment section and start bashing me about not trying to learn the language in a foreign country, hear me out. So learning the language is really important if you want to move in a foreign country and if you want to have a really good life in a foreign country where the state language is not English. I understand that, and I fully respect the fact that you have to learn the language. I myself have learned Japanese. I'm not the best at it, but I am at a level which helps me lead a really easy life. But the language barrier problems comes in different aspects of your life in Japan. Firstly, when you're thinking about doing any kind of official work, all the documents you have to sign, all the things you have to do are in Japanese. Hello. Can I get this document? No English. So even if you're the best at speaking Japanese, you'll have a hard time navigating official documents, and that is a big barrier when you want to live in Japan. For example, you have to make a contract for your house, or you want to get a smartphone, or you want to get a SIM. Any kind of official work you do, most times it's all in Japanese, and the documents you sign are in Japanese, and this is a problem a lot of foreigners face, including me. For example, you try to get an internet provider, they tell you it's a 2-year contract, and there's a lot of Japanese in the contract terms and conditions. You never read it, you sign it off, and then after a few months you want to cancel the service, and they tell you have a huge amount of cancellation charges which you never knew because you couldn't read the contract or understand. And this is a big problem. If you're a foreigner, probably you have faced it. Let me in the comments below if you had some experience like this. But for me, I had a similar experience, and it's not fun to get into contract that you can't get out of. So that language barrier is a big thing, and it comes up in different aspects, as I said, from your official work to going to the hospital or to getting a job. It's a big part of your life in Japan. So unless you are really lucky to have a job where you don't have to speak Japanese or use Japanese, it's really hard to have an easy life here unless you know the language. And even if you know the language really well, the official stuff gets really difficult. And I'm not saying that all the companies need to have bilingual stuff and everything in English, but I come from Bangladesh, where if you go to Bangladesh and you try to navigate your life in English, I'm pretty sure you'll have a more easier experience in Bangladesh doing the official work, because I think you'll have more English support. But here in Japan, the problem is, I'm not saying you need to have employees who speak English, but when I'm signing a document, I need to know what's in the document, and it's really helpful if I get English, because it's not that difficult to get English translation of documents. So that's something I think they should improve on. Sometimes you sign onto something, you never know. You might have signed out your life for 10 years and you don't know what you're doing. So documents and official work, that's a big barrier, and language is a big thing. So keep in mind, if you're not ready to study a new language and make it a part of your life, you're not ready to come to Japan.
But wait, there's more.
The second reason is that life in Japan is life with extra steps. So I'll explain it as good as I can, but we can sum up this point with a quote from the Trash Taste Boys. In an episode, they talked about life in Japan and different difficulties you face. And there they summed up, I think Joey summed up life in Japan as Japan is like a real life RPG. So for doing one thing, you have to do multiple small things just to get that one thing done. If that one thing was a click of a button in a different country, in Japan it's like multiple steps to go to different offices to get that one simple thing that could have been done with a single press of a button. So yeah, there are extra steps that you need to go through if you live in Japan, and I'll explain it with an experience of mine. So for example, you want to get a SIM for your smartphone, so you go to the provider, you sign a contract, you get the details, you pay your money, and probably in 30 minutes you get your probably in 30 minutes you get your SIM, right? That's a normal smooth transition that you should have in a smartphone provider. But in Japan, some companies, I'll tell you from one experience, I go to get a SIM, they tell me, okay, we need ID, we need to confirm your address that you live in Japan and stuff like that. So I give them their ID, I start the process, they explain everything, take around 30-40 minutes to explain everything about making a SIM contract with them, what are the benefits and what are the terms of the contract. That's done, and then finally they say, okay, we have your ID, we have your address, but we need a document to prove that you live in this address. You need a document to prove you live in the address that is on your official ID. So they tell me you need to go to the city hall, get this document, come back, and then you can get your SIM. So there you have it, a thing that could have been done in 30 minutes. It will take me one more day to go to a city hall, get the document to prove I live in the address that's on my ID, which makes no sense at all. So that is just one small example. There are multiple steps that get added on if you are trying to change your address in Japan, if you're trying to apply for your visa, if you're trying to get a driving license. There are things that could have been done more simpler, but they are more complex because life in Japan is like adding extra steps. There are so many things that I can share, and this can be a whole different video, but let me in the comments below if you want to know how the experiences are in different aspects where there are so many extra steps and steps don't make sense. So that's one thing. You might get frustrated if you like things that are smooth, but when it comes to official work, it's always with extra steps.
You are making $500,000 and you were only going to pay me 30?
You're getting 30 grand? I'm getting 1,000.
You guys are getting paid?
The third point that I want to talk about, which is a really popular point that is talked about on the internet, is the crazy work culture in Japan. So I don't want to waste much time on this topic because I know you already know that. So in Japan, the people work crazy hours, they work overtime, and then they don't take their paid leave, or fathers don't take paternity leave. These are all talked about. So I want to share some experience from my brief working experience in Japan. So I've been working in Japan for 2 years and I changed companies recently, but the previous company that I worked for, so we had overtime work, and in Japan a lot of your overtime work is either included with the pay you get, monthly salary, or it's not paid. So you have to work overtime, and a lot of times it's not paid, unpaid overtime work. So in my previous company, this was in December. So from Christmas Day on 25th till 30th of December, I think 6 days straight, I had overtime work every single day for 12 hours every day. So I had to work almost 60 or 72 hours. I forget if it was 5 days or 6 days in a row, but yeah, 60 hours straight every single day, 12 hours of overtime work. And it was crazy. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know why I was working overtime. I didn't know what was the point of that overtime. That didn't make any sense to me. But yes, that's what you end up doing if you work in Japan. Unless you work in a foreign company or in a small company or in a startup, which is forward thinking, you will end up working hours like this where you have to work overtime. And a lot of times there are like unexpected expectations from your coworkers where they want you to stay back even after the time is up. They want you to stay at the office and leave with your seniors, and this doesn't make any sense. In other countries, your time is up, you finish, you go home. But in Japan, a lot of people stay back. And when I asked my coworkers back in the previous company, why don't you take your paid leave? They have like 30-40 days of paid leave every few years. They collect them and they never use them. Like probably they have like 11 days a year, and 3-4 years in they have 40 days and they never used it. And I asked them, why don't you use it? And most of the answers like, what if I get sick someday, I need to leave? What if something emergency is there, I need to leave? Those are from emergency days. I don't want to take leave to have fun. So that's how the working culture is. The fourth point relates to the first point that I talked about, the language barrier, but I wanted to make a special point because it's not just about language but about the communication way. It's about healthcare in Japan. So you do have health insurance and a good healthcare system here, but when you actually go to the clinics or the hospital, it's a whole different story. I myself haven't had to go to the hospital for something serious, but I have heard experiences from my friends who have had to go to the hospital and they had a really bad experience. They can't explain what's going on with them. The doctor doesn't know what's going on with them, and the diagnosis they get isn't always clear. So if you go to the local clinic, if it's not in one of the big cities, most of the time the person doesn't speak English, and it's really difficult to explain what's going on with you. And then the doctor needs to understand there's a lot of broken English and Japanese, and then finally they diagnose and you get some kind of medicine. But the problem is they do it so fast, even though there's a communication gap, and you never know if you're getting the right diagnosis in most cases, unless it's somewhere you were able to explain what's going on with you. And the thing about the language barrier is that even if you speak fluent Japanese, it's really hard to explain something the way a Japanese would explain to a doctor compared to what a foreigner would explain to a doctor, because you don't know how Japanese people explain their medical condition. There are some weird terms that they might use compared to what you would use because you speak proper Japanese. So those are things that you need to get used to, and I'm always hesitant to go to the clinic or the hospital because I don't know what I'm getting into. I don't know what the doctor is going to explain. I don't know what I will explain to the doctor. That's why I've always delayed my bookings with the clinics or hospitals, which I shouldn't do. But anytime I'm sick, I always tell myself, please God, let me be better after 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Let me delay it as much as possible, as long as I don't need to go to the hospital. But if I do need to go there, it's a really weird, confusing situation where it's really fast. They try to do it really fast, like in 5 minutes they sit there, ask you what's going on, check a bit, and then they, oh, you have this medicine, go, bye. Oh, sorry. So that's the experience I have had, but let me know in the comments below if you're a foreigner in Japan, if this point is valid. Like, going to the hospital is a really hard experience. For me, it was. For you, if it was, let me know in the comments below, add to the conversation, because that's a big barrier. If you move to a foreign country, you need the healthcare to be good. You need to get support when you're sick, because you're already far away from your friends and families, and if you don't have that support of a good healthcare system, you might feel alone and might not feel healthy. You need to feel healthy. So yes, the clinics and hospitals, if you go to the big cities, you have the English support, you have a great system. But if you go to the local clinics, it's a whole different story, and the language barrier really impacts the way you get support from the healthcare system. The fifth and final reason is really hard to explain, but I'll try my best. It's about never feeling like you are included. You always feel like an outsider, and this is really hard to explain. But even after living more than 6 years in Japan, I still feel like I'm an outsider. I'm not included in society, and that's natural because Japan, it's a homogeneous society. There's almost 98% Japanese, ethnically Japanese people in the country, so that's going to happen. And when you live here, when you go on your day-to-day activities like going to the shopping mall, supermarket, going on a train, bus, you always stand out. And if you're a big guy like me, you definitely stand out, and people always gives you looks if you are, especially in the countryside. And for me, I'm fine with it. I understand that you live in a foreign country where foreigners are not the majority and you will be looked at different. For me, I'm fine with it, but it's different for different people. You might not feel accepted, and that might impact your mental health. So do keep that in mind. Even if you live here for 10-20 years, you'll always be looked out as a foreigner. And there are also times where you are singled out as a foreigner, like during the COVID pandemic situation, there were travel bans, and in the beginning the travel ban was only for foreigners. Even if Japanese people came from same country, they were allowed to enter, but the foreigner from the same country were not allowed to enter. Slowly the rules changed, but that's like, foreigners are always a scapegoat for any kind of problem. Go and watch this video where I talk about some aspects of this, like racism in Japan, or how there's xenophobia, how you are always excluded or blamed, and there are a lot of examples in that video. But yeah, you will have situations where you are singled out as the problem, or you are the main issue in the situation. But overall, it doesn't create that much of a problem. You will always feel like you are being looked at, you are standing out, but it's not a problem. They don't like create any problem for you. It's just they're curious that you're from a foreign country. But it's different for people from different countries. For example, if you're a white American, European, the experience you'll have in Japan is different. I think Japanese people kind of look up to people who are from America and Europe, and they think highly of those nationalities. But if you're someone from South Asian countries or brown like me, I'm from Bangladesh, and a lot of times they don't look that good at people who are brown. Like for me, a lot of times people would think, how did I end up coming to Japan? They're always curious, how does a person from Bangladesh come to Japan? Because for them, the image of those South Asian countries is really negative. So they're always curious about how I came here, what I do here, and they're surprised to know what I actually do. Normally they think people from those countries are basically doing blue collar jobs. So if you're doing something white collar, they are really surprised. So sometimes you might get offended if you are someone brown or from South Asian countries. I think it's really surprising for them. But if you are from Europe and America, you have a different life. You have a different kind of reaction from the Japanese people compared to what I get. But that's from my personal experience and talking to my friends who are from America or Europe, what they have felt. But I personally feel that there's a difference in treatment of how American or Europeans get treated, or how brown or South Asians. This might be controversial to say, but that's what I feel. So if you are someone who's brown like me, let me in the comments below if you have felt that too. If you have felt that kind of a slight discrimination where you are treated differently because you're not a native speaker. So yeah, those are the things that are negative aspects of life in Japan. I have shared 5, but I do want to give some honorable or dishonorable mentions, which are that firstly, let me see. One is the problem with gender equality. If you look at the ranking of Japan in gender equality, it's horrendous. I think it's 120th, and it's really bad. So if you're someone who's a female, you have a really hard time in the corporate work culture or in different aspects of your life. But personally, since I haven't faced that, I can't speak much about it. But if you're someone who faced gender equality issues in Japan, do add to the conversation in the comments. And the other thing is the lack of talk about mental health. So if you know Japan, you know about the crazy amount of suicides that happen in Japan, and they happen for a wide variety of reasons. You can't single out one specific reason, but also the fact that they never talk about mental health issues here in Japan. You don't see the youth talk about mental health. I've talked with high school students or university students, and I never get that they understand the aspect of mental health, and it's really not talked about. So if you're someone who does have mental health problems where you will have a hard time, you need support, I don't think you'll get good amount of support in Japan. I don't think they have the system to help people who might have mental health problems. You might feel isolated, you might feel alone, and you might not get the support that you want to get. But that's personally from me, because I haven't needed that support. But if you're someone who has mental health issues, let me know in the comments below if you have had a good experience here in Japan, because personally what I've seen from the internet and what I've seen other people, it's not that great, and I haven't seen Japanese people talk much about mental health. So that's a topic that's really not talked about here in Japan. And what else? Okay, and the last thing is the endless amount of rules that you need to follow here in Japan. So there are some rules that are not laid out there, but there are general rules that you need to follow here for different things that you do. Even going to the supermarket, in the train, or renting a house, how you use the house. There are some rules that are not explained properly, but you need to understand and need to abide by them to be a part of the society. So there are a lot of rules that don't make sense, but you do need to follow them if you want to be included and if you want to have a smooth life here in Japan. So those were all the negatives about life in Japan. Honestly speaking, at the beginning it was hard for me to find negatives, but then I saw some videos made around this topic and I tried to give my own spin to those reasons. And one video that helped me was the video by Abroad in Japan, where he gave around 12 reasons for not moving to Japan. So go do watch that video. He made a better video than me, but this is my personal opinion about reasons not to move to Japan. And let me know in the comments below if you do agree with the reasons or if you don't agree with the reasons, and if you want me to elaborate on any topic, I'll love to help out. I'd love to talk more about the topic, and any questions about life in Japan, moving to Japan, let me know in the comments below. This series will continue as long as I haven't answered all the questions about life in Japan. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.